You're listening to John Hart, the Heart of Appalachia, where the mountains don't just echo the past, they testify. And today, we're traveling to Keystone, West Virginia, back before 1970, when the coal companies ran the land, the law, and the lives of the people who lived there. And in the shadows of that power, there was a place called Cinder Bottom, a district built on money, secrecy, and the quiet cooperation of men who claimed to stand for order. This is a story of how coal companies didn't just dig coal. They built an underground economy of their own. Keystone had two faces. It was a town of contradictions. By day, it was a thriving community, one of the few black majority towns in West Virginia, full of teachers, business owners, preachers, and union men, a place of pride, culture, and resilience. But when the sun dipped behind the ridges, another Keystone woke up. Down in the cinder-covered streets, past the storefronts and the churches, was a district lit by lanterns and piano music. A district the company men pretended not to see, even though they helped build it, Cinder Bottom. Contrary to the stories told later, the women who worked in Cinder Bottom weren't local girls. They didn't grow up in McDowell County. They didn't come from the coal camps. They were brought in, quietly, deliberately, by people connected to the coal companies. Some came from the cities, some from out of state, some from places they never talked about. They arrived in trains and in cars that pulled in after dark. They lived in boarding houses owned by people who answered to the company. And they worked in establishments that paid a portion of their earnings upward, not by choice but by design. Because nothing in a coal town happened without the company knowing. The trains that ran on Friday nights. Here's the part that still shocks people today, the ones who know. On weekends, the coal companies ran extra trains into Keystone. Not for freight, not for supplies, not for coal. For miners, men from neighboring camps, men who worked 12-hour shifts underground, were hauled into Cinder Bottom like clockwork. The trains would slow down near the district and the men would pour out, laughing, shouting, pockets full of script and cash. It was an unofficial system, but everyone knew it was official enough. The companies understood something simple. A miner who spent his money on a weekend was a miner who came back broke on Monday. And a broke miner was a miner who kept working. The brothels didn't operate freely. They operated under obligation. Every establishment paid a portion of its earnings, a fee, a cut, a consideration, to people connected to the coal companies. Not openly, not on paper, but consistently. It was the cost of doing business. And if you didn't pay, you didn't stay open. The money flowed upward, quietly, predictably, like coal dust rising from a tipple. The police who looked the other way. Keystone had law enforcement, but in a company town, the badge didn't always answer to the law. Officers received enticements, gifts, payments, favors, to keep their patrols pointed in the opposite direction, to ignore the trains, to ignore the crowds, to ignore the businesses that weren't supposed to exist. And they did. Because in the coal fields, the company didn't just own the mines, it owned the silence. It's the weekend world of Cinder Bottom. Just picture this. Friday night, the trains roll in, the streets fill with miners, music spills out of saloons, laughter echoes off the brick walls. The air is thick with coal smoke and the smell of hot food from the boarding houses. The women stand in doorways, watching the crowds, some tired, some hardened, some simply surviving. They weren't part of the community, not really. They were outsiders brought in to serve a purpose the company didn't want to admit existed. And yet, they become part of Keystone's story all the same. By the 1950s and 60s, the coal industry began to mechanize mechanically. Jobs disappeared, families moved away, and the train stopped running as often. Cinder Bottom dimmed, the brothels closed, the boarding houses empty, and the music faded. By 1970, the district was a ghost of itself, a few buildings, a few memories, and a reputation that outlived the place. A 1975 newspaper described it as a place where ashes and memories have settled. Today, Cinder Bottom is gone, but the story remains, whispered by old miners, old-timers, tucked into the family histories, remembered by those who knew the truth behind the company's polished image. It's a reminder of what power looks like when no one can challenge it. A reminder that in the coal fields, the company didn't just own the land, it owned the night. You've been listening to John Hart, The Heart of Appalachia, where the stories aren't always pretty, but they're always true to the people who live them. If you enjoyed this podcast, please like, share, and follow. God bless you, and I'll see you on down the road.